Hello. So we're going to be doing a little bit of note reading, and this is everything that you need for level C. And we're going to be looking at what we call treble clef. So you may recall that when we did our level A badge, we learnt 5 notes for treble clef, which were C, D, E, F, and G. And then we learnt for our level B that often with the left hand, which goes underneath the treble clef a lot of the time, we learnt 5 notes going down from C, which was C, B, A, G, and F going down. So think of it this way. Treble clef is often for the upper part. It's great for notes from middle C and above, but it is possible sometimes to have treble clef in the bottom bit as well. But I think these are things to worry about at a later time. So I think it's a good way to think about it that treble clef is mainly for using for your right hand and for the upper part. So with that in mind, I'm going to take that one away because it's all about treble clef. So I'm going to bring up my piano here and put the little treble clef down there first of all. I'm going to just take away the picture of me, just so you've got a really nice big screen for us to look at the piano and the notes out in front of us. So hopefully, there you go, there's the piano nice and big. So let's look at some notes that we hopefully already know. So this was the first note we ever learned, which was middle C. And on my piano here, look, there's the name in the middle of it. Here's my middle C. So this C is that note. And then we learned a note a tiny bit higher than that, which is D, which we've often played with our second finger, but of course it can be played with any finger. So if we kept going, we then got to another note that we know really well, which is E. And I'm going to pause there for a moment. I want you to have a little think about where these notes are placed. So middle C, it's not actually on the stave here. So this is the stave, by the way. So here's our treble clef. So we have a treble clef and a bass clef, but this is the treble clef. Then we have the stave, which is, when we first started, I tended to call the music ladder because it's quite a good way of thinking of it as a music ladder. However, its proper name is the stave, and all the stave is 5 lines and 4 spaces. And then you place your notes on it, and depending on where those notes are placed, you know where they are on the piano. So this was C. Can you see it's not actually on the stave? It's just below it, and it has its own little line going through it. D, the next note up, tiny bit higher. It's still not actually on the stave. It's just touching it here. So yes, it's got its stem going up, but the note head, the bit that tells us where the note is on the piano, that's just below the stave. And then that brings us to E. So a lot of our work has revolved, we tend to think about things going up from C and things going down from C. What I really want to think about today is reading notes from E and upwards. So hopefully E is a note we feel happy with. It's that one right there, C, D, E. Now, instead of working out where F is and everything, I just want to think about these notes that are all on lines. And I'm just going to put them out on the piano here. So you've got E, we know that one's E, don't we? And then the next line up would look like that. And then the next line up would look like that. Then the next line up would look like that. And then the top line will look like that. So let's have a count. Do you remember I said there's 5 lines? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are always 5 lines on the stave. So let's just pop them up on there so we can refer back to them. That one, we know, it's E. You might even know that one, which is G. So where's the E? So there's E. The next one that we've learned before is G. Now, it's not there, it's there, isn't it? Because when we go from that line to that line, we are missing out the note that's on the space. And that pattern carries on all the way up. So like this, every other note is a line. And that's the top line up there. I'm not even going to worry about the names of them for a moment. I like to think of them as trampolines, little trampolines, the line trampolines that get you between the different lines. And we've got 5 of them. And the bottom one, we can hopefully just about remember, is E. We can always keep that in our mind, that E. You can always work out all the rest very, very easily. So if you've got your piano there in front of you, just try doing what I'm doing. Just try hopping up the lines. Maybe pause and then come back the other way. See if you could just sort of quite randomly just tap out the 5 notes that are on lines without tapping any of the others. So just getting really familiar with that. Oh, look, I did them all 5 fingers. And you can even do them with those 5 fingers. Now, I know you won't have big fat hands like mine, but you can still maybe do this and then move up, then move up. Just use different fingers. Just get used to the fact that the lines are every other note. And by the way, we have a sentence for remembering these note names, which are every good boy deserves football. If you forget that, it doesn't matter, because as long as you know that the first one is E, you can always find the others, can't you? 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you saw that one, you go, I need the third line up. There's the first, 1, 2, 3, it's that. And then you go, oh yes, next to C, it's B. The top one, that's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the top trampoline. Line trampoline number 5 gives you that one. So you get the idea. So we're going to do a very simple little activity here. I'm going to jumble these notes up, and then I'd like you to try and play the note before I play it. Okay. So I'm doing it quite randomly. I don't know how I'm jumbling these up. I'm just, putting them up. See what comes out. And then I'll show you how I'm going to work them. Oh, drop that one there. I'll show you how I'm going to work them all out. So remember, there's 5 lines. So when I look at this one, I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now remember, the bottom line is E. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's that. It's D. So I didn't have to use the every good boy deserves. I can see it's D. This one is the second one up. There's the one. It's that one. It's G. Every good. This one is the third line up. B. Every good boy. That's the top line, like that, and then that's the bottom line. So the top line was F, and then the bottom line is E. So it's quite simple, really, isn't it? So let's put those to one side and think about now the other notes that go between the lines. Because if those are the lines, if these are the lines here, the other notes are the spaces. But there's only 4. Well, that's right, because if I take this note, which hopefully you remember, this one is F, that's the first space. So remember, this is the first note that's actually on spaces. So that's that note there. We're going to have another little set of trampolines, and these are called space trampolines, and there's 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to remember one thing. The bottom one is F, okay? And there they are. I'm not even going to worry about the names for a moment. As long as you know that bottom one is F and it's there just above middle C, then the rest we can quite easily do. There they are. That one is F. So that one is C, D, E, F, G, A. The next one is that, well, that's rabbit ears, C. And then the last one is E. They do spell a word, face, F-A-C-E spells face. But I honestly think if you just remember that the bottom one is F, because we've done that note a lot of times, and then you can work the rest out from the piano. F-A-C-E spells face. Here's our game again. We're going to just jumble them up. So remember, the bottom space is F. As long as you remember that, you can work the rest out. So here we are. Mix them up. I'm going to put them out like this. Right, so what we've got second space up, bottom space is F. It's that note. It's A. This is the third space up. That's the first. F is always the first space. C. This one is the top space. Bum, 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 bum. And then that one is the bottom space, which was F. And there we have it. So now we have F, A, C, E, the space notes. So anything on a space, you work out going up from F in skips, in thirds, however you want to think of it. I call this a skip. Some people call that a third. It's the same thing. It's basically when we miss out a note, isn't it? And then the lines were this. Okay. So let's try this now. You could just jumble these up and see what happens. Now, it's easier said than done trying to jumble these. So I'm just going to put some of the lines just to make sure we get a good mixture of lines and spaces. In they go, like that. Mix them up a bit. Let's do that little activity. See if you can beat me to it, naming these notes, okay? And if you can't get there quite in time, it doesn't matter because you can see how I've worked it out. So I'm just going to have a big pile of these now and take them away one at a time. So here's my first one. It's the bottom line, E. Third space, right, so the spaces go from F. It's C. Back to lines. So remember, we work from E upwards to lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's that one. Now, that's C, that's D. Spaces. Spaces go from F. Lines. So we're going from E now. So remember, these are little trampolines on line. Bum, 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 bum. That gives us F. This one are spaces. So we've got 4 trampolines going from F. It's A. That's the second line. We work from the first trampoline, first line trampolines there. It's G. Third line up. So 5 trampolines going up from E. It's B. And then the last one of these, it's the first. And let's throw in a couple more. Ones we already know. We already know C, don't we? Which is there. Okay. We already know D. Let's throw in another 2, and we've got a really good spread of notes now. Now you may be thinking, oh, that looks tricky. That is the note below C. So look, there's C. Okay, so that's middle C. Can you see this has got the same ledger line, but the note is slightly below it. So it's not a skip below C, it's a step below. It's a second down for it. It's B. And we could do the same thing off the very top. So the top line was the top line trampoline. So remember, the trampolines were these 5 little trampolines here. F was the top one. This isn't another trampoline up. This is the next note up, isn't it? So that's the G. And there we have it. So everything you need to know. So remember, you can use every good boy deserves football for the lines starting from E. And you can use face for the spaces. F-A-C-E spells face. However, it's very easy to forget those. But if you can manage to remember that E is on the first line, because that's a nice, easy note to do, that gives you these straight away. And if you can manage to remember that F is the first proper space on the stave, that gives away the 4 spaces, giving you all of those notes. And then, of course, you put in D and C, and then you could go a bit lower, and then you go a little bit higher, and so on. So there we have it. So I hope that was helpful and that made some sense. So remember, just run that video a few times and hopefully you got everything you need for treble clef, for your level C, but more importantly, to be a good pianist. So then the next stage is on the level D. We'll be doing a similar thing with the bass clef, and we can do exactly the same thing. But of course, we're going to be looking at lower down notes, but that's all for the future. So all the best. Remember, run the video a few times, and I think that's practically everything you need. There's loads of little apps out there that you can then play, you know, which just test you on notes, and you have to do them to time. But I leave that to you to find this, because there are literally millions of them out there, different note naming things. But the main thing is you have a way now of working your notes out without having to write things down or remember really complicated sentences. Bye-bye.